Get ready, get set, go! Welcome back to the channel, everyone. So great to see you. This week, I don't just have another regular video where I do a long run. This week, I have a special video because last weekend, I ran a half marathon. So it's a race video today. Woohoo! Before we get this video kicked off, if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment in the comment section, maybe tell me about the last time you did a half marathon or what's the longest race you ever performed, if any. Or maybe you want to get into running, let me know what goals you have for your next race. Like I said at the top of the video, this last weekend I ran a half marathon. And I was really trying for a personal record or a PR, but unfortunately I did not come close to achieving that. I was really hoping to spend this video talking about how excited I was to hit my goals and, just how lovely the race was and how lovely Central Park was that day and everything like that. But I kind of had to pivot and make a different video. I had a few unfortunate things go wrong before the race and a couple choices that I made that were terrible decisions that resulted in me having such a poor performance for this race. And instead of just complaining about how bad I did during this race, I thought I'd have a little fun with it and kind of make it like 5 things to not do before the race, so you don't have such a bad performance. Just to give you guys some insight on, obviously what not to do so you don't follow my example and so you guys can just perform to your absolute best for when your race days come. So I thought it would be a little fun to poke fun at myself for all the silly decisions I made, but let's first talk about the half marathon itself, the New York City Summer Half Marathon. So let's quickly go over some of the details of the race. I don't want to spend a ton of time talking about my performance for the race. I figured that is going to be more disclosed when I talk about like the 5 things not to do before a race. So just kind of like the generic facts about the race. Like I said, it was a half marathon. So I was running a total of 13.1 miles. And the race started at like 7:30 a.m. So I had to get to Central Park pretty early. Like I said, the course was being held in Central Park. There is like a loop that goes around Central Park. I've ran it multiple times. There's videos of me running it. It's pretty like common, but we were starting on the northeast side of the park, close to the entrance that's 102nd Street. Just in case, those who are familiar with Central Park kind of get like an area of like where we started. This was a nice race because you started and finished in the same area. So you didn't have to like run, drop something off, at the bag drop, and then like after the run, travel like a good distance to pick up your bag. I've done a few races like that, so it's really annoying. This race, like I said, was nice because it was the same area, so it's super easy. It was actually a rather small turnout for this race. This race wasn't held by one of the 2 big running organizations here in New York, so there was probably about like maybe 100 or so runners for this race, maybe 200. There were 2 different distances that you could sign up for, the half marathon and a 5-mile run. And I think there were probably at max like 100 runners in each one, probably less. The track for this race was a little interesting for a run in Central Park. That loop that I talked about that goes around Central Park is actually like about 6 miles in distance. So most of the time when there are half marathon races in New York, you just run the full loop twice. But for this one, you actually only ran kind of like the outer loop once, and then you ran 2 more loops and a bit on of an inner loop to get that 13.1 miles. It was a bit strange. It was sort of nice because you only ran Harlem Hill once, and you ran it at the beginning. But doing 3 laps around Central Park, even though it was a small loop, just made it felt like it was dragging like a really long time because the scenery got boring, and that kind of got to me mentally. But overall, even with my poor performance, I still had a lot of fun with the race, and at the end I got my really cool t-shirt and my really nice medal. I was really surprised with how nice the medal was because it wasn't one of the big 3 race organizations I talked about. It was very large and a good amount of weight to it. They had a really cool medal ceremony too for the top 3 finishers of like different groups, which was really nice. I did not meet any of those finishes. I was really shocked because for the men's fastest runner ran his time in like under an hour and 30 minutes or like hour 20 minutes or something like that. It was wild to see someone run that fast. But that's going to be all the details that I'm going to talk about the race in this video. If you have any more questions about the race itself or the organization that hosted the race, leave some comments below and I'll respond to them as quick as I can. So we can jump right into the 5 things not to do before a race. And again, this isn't in any particular order, or even if these are the best like tips to give you. These are just kind of like the 5 big mistakes I made, so you guys don't do the same mistakes. The first thing not to do before a race is not check on all your devices that you're going to bring for this race and make sure that they're charging overnight. This includes your phone, your smartwatches, or Fitbits or whatever, and then for my case, the GoPro that I plan to film the entire event. I unfortunately thought I was charging everything, but wake up the morning of the race only to find nothing charged, and I was just panicking and trying to charge everything a little bit before the race, as much charge as I could before the race, so I can maybe try to capture a little bit of it. And of course, you don't need to bring those devices for your races, they're not like essential equipment. But if you're using those to track your performance and you want to collect your data for your run, those things are, of course, important. And I don't know, for me, I love collecting all that data. And when I don't have my phone or my smartwatch or my headphones, even for, to listen to music while I run, it can just really throw off my mood for runs, which is not a great way to start your run. Next up, on things that you shouldn't do to prep for a race, don't stay up super late the night before the race. This might sound super obvious and like a duh, of course, don't stay up super late. Get as much sleep before something super physically straining, like run a half marathon. I get that. But I think it's super important and needs to be restated. Get as much sleep as your body needs before a race day, so close to about 8 hours. So, normally with these races, since they start so early, starting at like 6 or like 7 or like 5 a.m. or something like that, it's really important to make sure that you get all your hours, your close to 8 hours of sleep. So that might require you to go to bed earlier than normal since you're waking up earlier than normal. Unfortunately for me, the week before the trip, I was actually on a work trip, so I wasn't home in New York, and I had my return flight set for that Friday before my race. And unfortunately, due to the weather, my flight got madly delayed, and I ended up not getting home until about like 1:30 a.m. in the morning. So closer, about 2 a.m. is when I actually was able to fall asleep. And the race started at 7:30, so there was no shot of me getting those full 8 hours of sleep. So don't follow my example. Try your hardest not to travel the night before the race so you can really make sure that you get enough sleep that your body needs. The next tip I have for you on how not to prepare for a race is do not change your morning diet routine. So normally in the mornings, if you have, breakfast before a morning run, eat breakfast. If you normally go on runs without breakfast or before you eat breakfast, then keep it the same. Don't eat breakfast if you don't normally do so. This kind of follows the example of don't do anything new on race day, the very common phrase that you hear among running groups, but I think it's very important to highlight that breakfast routine is included on that. Something you also shouldn't change in your morning is how much caffeine that you normally have in the mornings before runs. Don't think since it is a run day that you need to slam, a bunch of cups of coffee or like 2 or 3 5-hour energies before a run and think that extra caffeine is going to help you in that race. What most likely it's going to do is make you sick for your actual race. For example, myself, I normally have, a cup of tea with 2 bags of tea in it in the mornings before my runs, maybe a cup of coffee. But for this race, since I didn't have the best sleep, I thought it was best to slam a 5-hour energy just before the race. And of course, where most people can kind of see this going, I ended up throwing up during the race. Disgusting, I know, but luckily no one was around me and it was in a bush where that no one else would go around. I had to wash my mouth out at the next like water stop. It was overall not a good idea. That much caffeine in my body just before the race just made it super upset. I could have either maybe brought Tums or something to help calm down my stomach, but I should have kept my normal caffeine routine if possible. My next obvious tip for you is don't ignore the weather prediction for that race day. So before the race, check the weather consistently, the day before the race or the week before the race, and kind of just get an idea what to expect for what the weather is going to be when you're actually running the race. This can help prep you, to bring extra water if it's going to be super hot, or if it's going to be rainy, so you can bring different like rain equipment, or cold, you maybe run with like extra layers or something like that. Checking the weather just really helps you prepare for the actual race itself. That way you don't show up at the race completely not ready for the weather, and it just completely kapoots your race attempt. Unfortunately for me, I was not aware that it was going to be like 90 degrees the day, super humid day for the race. I did not bring the most breathable running shirt and shorts and got way overheated for the race. I definitely think that overheating is what also contributed to the fact that I threw up during the run. The last tip I have for you on what not to do to prepare for a race is don't leave late for the race. Leave with plenty of time for you to get from your house to the race starting line. Nothing is more stressful than running out the door, racing against the clock to even get to the race before it even starts. That's obviously how you forget things to begin with. Try to show up to the race with plenty of time, to pick up your bib if you haven't picked it up already, if you didn't get it mailed to you. Also, you can go drop off your bag if you have one at the bag stop, so you have time to do all your stretches and warm ups for the races to make sure you're all loose and ready to go for the race. And probably most important, just so you're mentally prepared for the run itself. If you're spending all your mental energy and time on figuring out how to even get to the race on time, then you don't have enough resources to spend to get yourself mentally prepared and in the mindset for the run itself. It's important for you to get your plan set to kind of like feel how your body's moving and how, what points of the race you're going to be kicking up the pace or kicking low down the pace. Just all this like mental thought, that goes in for a race that's super important. You don't have time for that when you're running late for the race. And sometimes if you're running super late, you tend to run even further than the race itself just to get to the race. And sometimes if you're running super late, you can even miss the start of the race and that just kind of like ruins the entire thing, at least in my opinion. That's about going to do it for this week's video, everyone. Thank you again so much for watching. Again, I apologize for, the poor performance that I had, and I was hoping this video was going to be more cheery and more celebrating my victory, but I'm not trying to dwell on it, and I'm trying to move past the race, and I kind of wanted just to state my mistakes so that next time comes around, I can really focus and, I can actually hit my PR next time. I have another half marathon before the New York City Marathon in October. And hopefully in that one, I have time to do my prep work and to really knock it out of the park. So here's hoping for that next one in October. I'm signing out for this week, everyone. Again, Macho Marathon Man. You can find me on all the other socials, TikTok, Instagram, here on YouTube. Give me a shout out, everyone. Thanks for watching. See ya. Bye.